Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel, where we delve into the mind of a villain. In this entry, we'll be taking a look at Frank Costello, the fictional character from the crime drama film The Departed. A callous, irreverent, and ruthless antagonist, Frank Costello was a highly respected and feared crime boss, one of the most depraved we've seen on the screen. We'll be taking a closer look at what the film reveals about his origins, his principles, his motivation, and his place in the overall story as it relates to his surrogate sons, Colin Sullivan and Billy Costigan. Not much is given about Costello's background, but we do know that he grew up in an Irish Catholic family in the Irish neighborhood of South Boston, at a time when Irish immigrants were disliked by the American community. Of his own admission, Costello was a good student at an early age, but eventually turned to a life of crime in the Irish mob. It's likely that he did not have a good relationship with his father, as implied in the scene where Queenan mentions that Costello's father called him the tumor. As an adult, Costello is sophisticated and intelligent, showing an appreciation for the arts. He attends opera viewings and appears to have an affinity for drawing and painting. Costello quotes John Lennon when he tells Billy that he sees him as his tuba, something that he can use to make art out of. In his opening narration, we quickly learn that Costello lives life on his own terms, taking a proactive and assertive approach. He doesn't want to be a product of his environment, but wants his environment to be a product of him. Costello displays a high level of tenacity, like a character who creates his own luck. The film takes the effort to repeat one of his lines where he mentions 2 times that in life, no one gives it to you, you have to take it. And shortly after, he says, when you decide to be something, you can be it. Over the years, Costello has made a name for himself as an Irish mob boss in the neighborhood with his criminal activities, the least of which is extorting protection money from local businesses in the area. Given his methods of violence and intimidation, Costello is no stranger to using murder as a tool to serve his evil desires. He confesses to Billy in the restaurant scene that a lot of people had to die for me to be me. And also, after Queenan's death, he comments that one of us had to die with me. It tends to be the other guy. Costello is so desensitized to acts of violence that he is unusually nonchalant in the face of it, as seen when he makes a casually crude remark after executing 2 people. His associate, Mr. French, no stranger to murder himself, is so disturbed by Costello's remark that he solemnly tells Frank that he should seek psychiatric help. To further illustrate Costello's twisted mind, we need look no further than the scene where we see him fiddling with a severed hand of one of his victims while eating breakfast with Billy. However, despite Costello's criminal reputation, he still tries to maintain a decent public image to the people in the Irish neighborhood, as seen when he provides groceries to a young Colin Sullivan, when he sends flowers to the funeral of Billy's mother, and when he attends the children's choir event. Costello is very anti-church. At the start of the film, when talking to a young Colin about the church, he mentions the phrase non serviam, Latin for I will not serve, quoting from Irish author James Joyce, but those words have been typically associated with the devil. Costello's disdain for the church is also seen when he mocks the act of confession and when he asserts dominance over the clergy by telling a pair of priests that his archdiocese, referring to the neighborhood of Boston, is run by him and not God. In his eyes, he's the neighborhood's all-powerful being. Costello is 70 years old in the film's present narrative. Regarding his motivation, he himself confesses that he doesn't need the money or the women anymore, but that he does it just because he likes it. Eventually, Costello becomes driven by the goal of catching the informant embedded in his gang by the police and to avoid incarceration by staying one step ahead of them with his own mole in the police. The game of cat and mouse has Costello interacting with 3 key individuals whose relationships with Costello we'll explore. The first of which is Captain Queenan, who can be seen as Costello's counterpart on the other side of the law. Not much is revealed about their past interactions, but we can deduce that they must have a long history together from this scene where the two of them exchange intimate details about the other's personal life. Queenan addresses Costello as Francis, his childhood name that his mother called him, and mentions that his father called him the tumor. In retort, Costello makes a snide remark on Queenan's absent father. Given that they appear to be of similar age and the fact that they know intimate details of each other's childhood, they must have grown up together, with Queenan deciding to be a cop while Costello a criminal. This is reminiscent of Costello's speech to a young Colin at the start, where he tells him that when he was a boy, they could either become cops or criminals. But when you're facing a loaded gun, it doesn't matter which one you are. You are going to have to do whatever it takes to survive. The next key character Costello interacts with is Billy Costigan, the informant embedded by Queenan into his gang. Costello has a high opinion of Billy, given that his uncle Jackie was one of his most reliable subordinates. He respects Billy for displaying the same tenacity as the rest of the Costigans, but mentions to him how far off the apple has fallen from the tree in comparison with his father, who never got involved in any criminal activities. Costello sees Billy as somewhat of a surrogate son, seen most notably in his fatherly interaction where he chides Billy for dismissing the idea of going back to school. Perhaps in some way, Costello wants Billy to make something out of his life other than just being his foot soldier, but most likely for his own nefarious purposes. While he's naturally suspicious of Billy being the rat as he's the new guy, eventually he trusts him fully after he passes his disinformation test. Billy becomes the only crew member that Costello trusts to be smart enough to handle all the evidence he has accumulated with his lawyer. Other than Billy, Costello has another surrogate son in the form of Colin Sullivan, his rat in the police force. Costello's relationship with Colin is tenuous, having him on a short leash where he is constantly threatening Colin of the horrible fate that awaits him should he fail, to the point where Colin contemplates leaving the police force and Boston to study in law school. When Costello is eventually betrayed by Colin, he mentions that he sees him as a son, which prompts Colin to mock him for his infertility, something he himself experienced earlier with Madeline. In fact, one of Costello's girlfriends is seen reading a book on how to get pregnant and makes a suggestive remark on his sexuality. While Costello puts on a big show of being sexually aggressive, despite his promiscuity, he has no offspring of his own, which Colin suggests was the reason why he was groomed as his informant in the first place. For all his talk of despising snitches, Costello is shown to be a hypocrite, as he himself is a rat for the FBI. At the end, Costello is akin to a Shakespearean villain who, true to his mantra, has created an environment according to his fashion, living life on his own evil terms, taking whatever he wants and eliminating anyone who would dare tell him what to do. Unfortunately, that environment proved to be one he himself could not survive in, and just like the rats he despises, he was forced to do whatever it took to ensure his survival. So what do you think of Frank Costello, folks? Is he one of the most despicable crime bosses we've ever seen on the screen? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching, folks. If you like this video, subscribe to see more like these, and you can check out some of the other characters we've covered here.